And we are live. Excellent. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to BFF Podcast episode 10. Today we're going to have a very special guest, specifically somebody who I feel like is sharing a similar pathway as I am. For those who don't know, coaching fighters, coaching people in martial arts, fitness, mindset training, and all that. And it's a very hard, I would say, and complex art to influence and change lives. And now I'm going to be sharing the studio with a person who is influencing fighters, influencing fitness enthusiasts, athletes to improving their strength and conditioning, as well as their mindset towards fitness to make sure that they make the most out of their, careers in sports. And this, I guess, right here is Coach Kenny Dusseault. Kenny, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great, man. I'm excited to be here. I appreciate you having me.
I appreciate you showing up as well. And honestly, I've been following you for quite a few months already. I, you popped up actually on my Facebook feed when I was scrolling through Reels, trying to look for more martial arts techniques, fitness influencers that can inspire me to, improve my fitness fundamentals as well for coaching. And what I would say what stood out the most was the way that you display your content where you actually link a UFC fight first, like a highlight, and then you proceed to explaining a specific fitness fundamental, especially strength and conditioning. I usually like to ask my guests, because that's the question that I had a desire to know the answers to. What made you actually want to get into coaching fighters, in more specifically strength and conditioning wise?
Yeah, so I was a little bit of a strange kid. Most kids grow up wanting to be the athlete. From a very young age, I kind of knew the athlete, being the athlete wasn't my calling. But I love being around sports. I love being around athletes and like that environment. I never really enjoyed much else. And so I always knew I wanted to be involved in some way. And then when I started working out, I was like 13 or 14. The first little while, I had no idea that could be like a job. But at the same time, it's like I started working out. I loved that. I loved being around sports. And then just over time, I started understanding like, what if I could like do this with athletes and like somehow make a living doing that? And like, it's, in the beginning, it didn't really seem very realistic. So there were a lot of kind of moments where, I was going to pursue something else, but it just always led back to I wanted to be around athletes, be around sport, and being in the gym was just the best way that I could do it.
Amazing, amazing. And to give a better context, because since I was following you for quite some time, and a few weeks ago, or actually, yeah, a few weeks ago, I came across your post to your 20-year-old self. And honestly, it was one of the reasons I reached out. There was a lot of things in that post that reminded me of my own journey, teaching people for free at first to grow my fitness and martial arts fundamentals, getting to self development to grow my coaching and leadership skills, building confidence in social media, because at first I was kind of skeptic about it, and even trying to create a life you don't need to escape from. So, my question is, I was very curious about it. If you could sit down with your 20-year-old self today, what's the biggest lesson you'd want him to understand?
The biggest thing I would tell him is stop asking what if it doesn't work and start asking what if it does. And that's a question I've used quite a bit. Like I had a speaking opportunity last year and I talked about that. And it's like essentially just what it means is we always go to the negative. I find so many people, anytime there's like an idea or a thought, I want to do this or I want to try that. Everybody goes right to here's the 157 reasons why it's a bad idea or why it won't work or why it's a mistake, instead of saying, well, what's on the other side of that if it does work? What if you pursue this thing you want to do and it actually happens? How great would life be? And so if I could go back to me at 20, I would just flip that one question, because I knew at 20 that this is what I wanted to do. But I was so stuck in all the reasons that it wouldn't work or all the mistakes or all the potential judgment that I wasn't willing to just go all in on it. Whereas as soon as I started saying like, screw what anyone else has to say about it or what anybody else thinks about it, what do you want to do? As soon as I just focused on that, like everything started changing, because it's like ultimately, we talk about like being realistic in the world, like, oh, you want to do this, but it's not realistic. Well, someone's doing it. And if someone's doing it, then it's realistic. So why not you? And it's like the only thing that stands in the way is the beliefs we have about ourselves and the amount of work we're willing to put in.
Powerful. Once you know what you actually want, you find your purpose, your mission.
Yeah.
Like sometimes they call it divine purpose. I feel like you can sometimes you can actually become unstoppable. And carrying this type of mindset towards coaching fighters, coaching people who want to improve themselves, that's what people need nowadays. And I'm curious now because one thing that stood out to me seeing is how much work happened before success. Coaching people for free,
Oh, yeah.
grinding through COVID, especially building your reputation one step at a time. Uh, that's something that I can relate from my own coaching journey as well, because you don't always start with the tools that could help you push yourself, but you gotta sometimes work with the tools that you have at your disposal. But what I am curious about is, was there a specific turning point where things started changing for you professionally?
Yeah, there wasn't, I wouldn't say like one moment, but I think the biggest thing was even at the lowest points, always asking myself, is it better than the alternative? Like when the business was like not really making it through the month and I was struggling with it every day, and like, you're going through like the hard parts of it. I would always sit and ask myself, like, there were moments where I tell myself like, oh, okay, it's not working. I need to go, like, I need to quit. I need to go do something else. And then I'd sit there and I'm like imagining working some 9 to 5, doing whatever, making decent money. And I was like, no, I'd rather keep trying this. And it's like, even though there was no money coming in, it wasn't really working well. It's like, it was always just, I would rather keep trying the thing that I'm trying than quit and go do something else instead. And it was like, that was the main thing that made me realize there was something deeper here. Cause it's like, most people would have been in my situation and been like, this sucks. I'm going to go do literally anything else. Like, I don't want to work 15 hours a day for no money. But the fact that I wanted to do that told me there was something more here. But the biggest turning point overall from the business standpoint, honestly, was hiring mentors. Like, I was running my own business for a long time, and then it was bringing on, I work with PT Domination. They're a business coaching company for online fitness coaches, basically. And working with them, because all the information you need is out there. But what I found happened is I was doing a lot of the right stuff. I was posting on social media. I was, doing all the work. But then I came into this program, got people around me that had been doing it longer than me, that knew more about it than me. And they were able to say, yeah, you're putting all the effort in over here, but just tweak this one thing. And then boom, results started coming. And it's like, so that's something that I shied away from for so long, because, when you don't have a lot of money, giving a bunch of it to someone else is scary. But at the same time, it's like, the investment I had to make in that program 4 years ago was terrifying at the time. But then, like, now the same amount of money isn't a concern because I hired mentors and the business grew. So it's like, making those difficult decisions or those scary decisions, that's what ends up putting you in a place that you want to be. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and that's actually resonating a lot because my former MMA coach, which I just finished doing a podcast with, one of the key lessons that I learned from him was invest in yourself. Invest in
100%.
yourself, especially from somebody who you see wanting to become similar to, or maybe taking a lot of lessons from. And once I started to implement that, not just for martial arts seminars, but also business networking events, traveling where other high net worth individuals are, I was able to see the results. Like, for example, you, like, I saw you on social media teaching UFC fighters, teaching professional fighters, and getting those results. That's amazing. That's already showing that if you choose the right steps, learning from the right people, invest the money necessary to get where you want to be, you will become basically similar to them, if not literally like them. And one thing that I did want to know, because you did start back in the days teaching a lot for free to get
Oh
this
yeah.
coaching experience. How did a guy teaching people for free end up working with UFC athletes?
So the biggest thing that helped there is social media. And the reason for that, like, it's a weird thing where I feel like there's a perception that if you are super active on social media, you're like a sellout. Like it means you're not a good coach because you're spending all your time making videos. And it's like, why can't you be both active on social media and good at what you do? Right? Because when you're like, you could be the greatest coach in the world, but if nobody knows about you, they can't find you. And if they can't find you, they can't work with you. You know what I mean? And so it's like, it's such an underutilized tool, I find, for so many coaches because they're afraid to like look a certain way or this or that. And it's like, the reason that I have all the opportunities that I've had, the reason that I'm sitting in my own house in the studio in my extra bedroom that I was able to build is because I started putting work into social media. That grew, more athletes were able to find me, and then we deliver great results when they come, so they stay, and then the business succeeds. Like, you can't, it's not one or the other, right? You're not on social media or good at what you do. Like, you can be both. It's a skill, just like learning how to coach.
That's inspirational. And funny enough, like I literally was holding it back a bit from doing the episode with you because I just saw the amount of caliber that you were coaching, like UFC fighters, pro boxers, and I just started to coach amateur fighters who were, getting inspired to become maybe amateur MMA champions or maybe get into UFC eventually, right? So seeing any people actually dealing with more professional or more known figures in the world and starting from nothing to something, that is the type of power that social media shows to make
Well,
connections. And yeah.
and the other thing to always remember, and I remember somebody telling me this before I worked with my first pro athlete, is like, they're the pro in the sport, you're the pro in this area, right? And it's because, like, I remember I had my first session with my first pro fighter, and I was so nervous for it because I'm like, oh man, like, who am I to be working with this like high level guy? And then, yeah, a friend of mine told me, like, yeah, he's the pro in the ring, but like, you're the pro in here. Like, he's coming to you for a reason. And I was like, oh yeah. Like, it's like understanding that somebody having been around for longer or somebody having worked with a higher level athlete doesn't make them necessarily better, right? It's about the results that you deliver, because like, I've been super fortunate. We've worked with 8 different UFC fight camps, professional, like, world ranked boxers in 4 or 5 different divisions, like, incredible athletes. But it's like, what matters is the result you can deliver them. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
And it's like, it all comes back to that. If you are not good at what you do, yeah, you might have a training camp or 2 with somebody, but eventually they're going to clue in, oh, wow, you're actually not that great. And they're going to move on. Right. But it comes down to the results, but you get the opportunity through being seen and through being, like, putting yourself out there.
That's great. And obviously, yeah, you've worked with athletes at different levels, amateurs all the way up to elite competitors, and you've had front row seat of what success actually looks like. But what originally made you decide to specialize in fighters rather than just general fitness audience?
So this is one of the things that I learned in the business coaching program. One of the coaches specifically, it was a hilarious conversation. Basically, she pulled me aside at an event and asked me a couple questions. How's everything going? How's life? Everything's going well. And, I'm sort of like telling her, like, yeah, things are good. And she goes, I got a question for you. And I was like, okay. She's like, could you like get your head out of your ass and just like stop trying to help everybody, because it doesn't work? And I'm like, oh, what? And I was so caught off guard. But her point was like, when you try to talk to everyone, you're a specialist for no one, right? So it's like, if you come to my page and you see combat sports, prepping for a fight, and then you go to some other guy's page and you see fitness, who are you going to go to? You're going to go to mine, right? And it doesn't mean that the other guy doesn't know what they're doing, but I become the expert by simply like focusing my time and focusing my energy on a specific niche. And so with this conversation with this coach at the business coaching event, Janelle, if you ever see this, I love you. Like basically she just said, she was like, who, if you had to narrow down, who is your favorite client to work with? And without a doubt, it was fighters. And there's a few reasons for it. The first was like at the time, I think I had 4 fighters overall in my business. But at like the first reason for it was I was a power lifter growing up. And there's a lot of similarities that we see in that niche as we did in fighting. Like number one is overtraining. Like powerlifters, when I was competitive, was like you just lift every single day. You're going as heavy as you can, as hard as you can all the time. That's kind of the mentality. Fighters, it's very much the same thing, right? It's always more, always harder, always like trying to make it more difficult. And so I knew my experience as an athlete, even though it wasn't in the same sport, is going to translate really well to being able to help these people. Number two is if I work with a hockey player, you could be in the greatest shape in the world. If your team sucks, you're still going to lose more than you're going to win, right? You're one of 5 guys on the ice plus the goalie. You're only on for a certain amount of time. With a fighter, I know if you have a good skill set and then we can put the conditioning, the strength, the power, all that stuff behind you, you're going to win a lot more than you're going to lose. And we get to help impact that directly.
Amazing. And now it starts to make sense why my coach used to say that martial arts is a team sport at the end of the day. Because even though, yeah, at the end of the day, even you're indirectly, you know, you're not passing the ball to each other, so to say, but there is energy involved inside of the gym where you're training with each other, when you're conditioning each other. And after that, when it translates into fights, to the actual arena, the only person you need to focus on is the voice of your coach, not of the crowd. So that's where people get lost. And that's what makes me interesting. It's obviously one thing you mentioned when we spoke via text was vision and helping people create a future for themselves.
Yeah.
A lot of people today, they know what they don't want. And a lot of people today, at the same time, they don't know what they actually want. So getting clear on your purpose, like we said, getting clear on who you want to teach, it's very important. But how do you create vision for your future before you had proof it would work?
So that's something that's been a much deeper calling for me over like the last year, is talking about this stuff, because I think a lot of us actually do know what we want, but we're too afraid to admit it, or we're too afraid to actually go for it. Right. Well, like the trap that I know I fell into for a long time is, instead of asking, what do I actually want out of life? I was almost asking, what am I willing to settle for? Right. Like when I went to university, thinking I was going to be a teacher because it was realistic and I'd be able to find a job. And it's like, that's not that bad. Right. But so it's like in my head, I was looking at it going, I want to be a teacher. And then 6 months into the education to be a teacher, I was like, oh my God, I do not want to be a teacher at all. Like I can't motivate myself to go to class. I don't want to study. This sucks. Like, and it's like, no disrespect to teachers at all. That's just not what I wanted to do. But then when I started thinking, what, like, basically start asking yourself, if there was zero limitation, nobody telling you you can't do this or this isn't realistic, what would you choose? And like that's going to continue to evolve over time. But if you can learn to ask yourself, what would you actually choose to do? How would you choose to spend your days? What do you actually want to do for a living? Without any limitations, no like, oh, but that's probably not realistic, so I should do this instead. No. What do you actually want to do? And when you're willing to ask that question and actually go for that thing, it's incredible the difference that you can make.
Man, literally similar path. That's what I'm saying. I literally, a few years ago, graduated from college. But as I was getting closer to graduation to become a police officer, I saw the possible future I would have had if I followed the same pathway that, let's say, my teachers, and not to shit on my teachers, which are
Of
previous
course.
police officers. They're great people, but I feel like they didn't get the amount of respect, the legacy, and happiness from life because they took that path.
Of
So I
course.
knew that the only thing I have control over is my skill sets, what I like doing, which is coaching people in martial arts. And I decided towards the end, actually, no, even before the end of the semesters, to start personal training, right? Personal training for college students and get my experience from there. So that was a great turning point.
Well, and man, the thing is, like, anytime I say this stuff, right, I always say no disrespect to teachers because it's like for some people, that is the thing. You know what I mean? Like the thing that you want to do is different for everybody. There's no right or wrong answer. I'm not sitting here saying like wanting to be a teacher is wrong and you need to want more. If you wake up every day and you're like, I want to do this, I want to be a teacher, I want to be in that classroom teaching these kids, whatever, like, great, go do that, be the best you can be at it. You've won the game. Like, the game isn't make the most money or have the coolest job. The game is wake up every day excited, wake up every day doing something you actually want to do. And it's like, if you can do that, and you're like, you're winning.
100%. And that's what's super great about it, because we have two audiences watching us. We have from your side those who want to improve their performance, whether it's physically, martial arts, mindset. For mine, I have a lot of entrepreneurs, want to be coaches and whatnot, who want to maybe learn the right way of handling a business. My question would be to make sure everybody understands the pathway for coaching and business. What separates coaches who eventually succeed from coaches who never move forward?
Ooh, that's a great question. I would say number one, being willing to invest in yourself. Like, we talked about that a little bit already. But number two, once you do, understanding that, like, that's step one, right? If you hire a mentor, you send them the money, and then you don't listen to what they have to say and you don't implement the stuff that they give you, you're going to stay stuck anyway, right? But if you're willing to actually, excuse me, take feedback, understand you don't know everything, and understand that, you know, if you're able to take the feedback you get and implement it, you're going to get a lot further. And then I think the other thing is personal development. It's like, if whatever the struggles you have mentally, whether it's, you know, being worried about being up on social media and, you know, judgment from your family, like whatever those things are that kind of stick in the way for you, be willing to face them, be willing to work through them, be willing to get uncomfortable, because like, you can make excuses all day. Oh, you know, this isn't going to work for me because of this, that, whatever. But it's like, someone in a worse situation than you somewhere has made a worse situation work better. You can make your situation work too. And it's like, you can find the excuse or you can figure out how to do it. And as long as you're willing to continue to figure out what the problems are and how to work through them, it might not be today, it might not be tomorrow, but you'll see whatever level of success you're trying to.
Amazing. And obviously, fighters who are watching as well, those who want to maybe get into fighting or maybe who are struggling to get some wins under their belt, might be watching to get some insights from you, because I've had a few people reach out about, oh shit, Coach Kenny, ask him some questions. So, what I would like you to explain to those fighters or want to be winners who are watching us, what's keeping fighters stuck most of the time from progressing in their careers?
Ego
Mm.
100%. And the reason I say ego specifically is like, number one, not being willing to, like, not number one, just like what I said there about like taking feedback and all that, not being willing to take feedback. The amount of times that I'll put out a video and it's like, if you're struggling with this area of your conditioning, here's what's happening, here's how to fix it. Like, I literally tell you, here's exactly what to go do. And then I'll get a fighter responding, that's too much rest time. And I'm like, based on what? And they're like, well, it's like, that's just too much. And I'm like, why? And like, they're just so unwilling to hear it. It's not, well, why do you rest that much? They're like, it's not asking a question about it, or, hey, I've heard this before, why do you do it this way? It's just, no, you're wrong, I'm right. And you're like, when that's your attitude, you're destined to fail. And that's ego, right? And the same thing when it comes to like the fighters that their mentality is like, I need to be the hardest worker in the room every single day. It's like, there's two sides of that. On one side, yes, go to training, work your ass off, push yourself as hard as you can. But on the other side, understand all the hard work has to have intention. When you hear the top level fighters in the world saying, you know, I'm the hardest worker in the room, they're also recovering harder than anybody in the room. They're also doing all the sauna, the red light therapy, the ice baths, getting 8 hours of sleep every night, the proper nutrition. So if you're just going in and doing all the work and then not taking the other stuff seriously, like that's ego. You trying to say, look at me and how tough I am, but not being willing to do the stuff that allows you to do that long term. So ego is the number one thing. Like, be willing to humble yourself, be willing to ask questions, and be willing to learn from the people around you. Don't just assume you know and that you have all the answers.
Dude, you're on the point right now because, and I'll explain why. Because it doesn't just apply to fighters; it applies to anybody who wants to become in a leadership positions, especially
anywhere.
My coach I spoke with him, and I just rehearsed the lesson he gave me like about 5 years ago. To be able to get where you want, like successful in life, first of all, you need to ask the mentor, or you need to ask yourself, is the mentor that giving me the lesson has what I want? Like, does he have what I want to achieve? And second of all, that's linked to ego. Are you coachable and open-minded 10 out of 10 all the time?
The one thing that I will say with that too, about like, does that person have what I want? The one place that I do find fighters will get in their own way, and I mean people in other fields too, but obviously this is the field that I'm in, so this is where I see it more, is people get too focused on confirmation bias or authority bias. So it's like, basically, like what I mean is somebody will say like, if I put out a video talking about like alactic conditioning, that's like, you know, the really short burst and the long rest. That's all science. Like, that's not me making shit up, right? But somebody will say, yeah, but Floyd Mayweather runs every day. And I'm like, cool, don't tell me what he does. Tell me why what I'm saying is wrong. You know what I mean? But it's the authority bias of like, I heard this one guy say this one thing this one time, and he's really good. So that means that applies to everybody across the board, always and forever. And it's like, no. Tell me why the information that you heard is incorrect. Don't tell me, well, this is what this other guy said. You know what I mean? And it's like, I understand listening to higher level fighters. And like, if you hear somebody talking about a certain method, take that into advisement. But also, just because I didn't win a UFC championship, it doesn't mean that when I talk about alactic conditioning, that's incorrect. You know what I mean? So it's like, look at the information surface level, like that's right in front of you. Don't just try to find the bias against it. Does that make sense?
100%. Like, there's a specific wording for it. Exception doesn't make the rule, especially. And that's like, it's so great that you actually brought it up, because we have a question from one of our viewers, and that's actually super tied to some biases that martial arts enthusiasts have, fighters have. So let's jump into it. So a lot of fighters have seen examples like Anderson Silva breaking his leg against Chris Weidman, or even the old Tony Ferguson memes where he's kicking steel poles, trying to condition his shins. There's a lot of confusion around bone conditioning in combat sports. How should fighters actually approach conditioning their shins, forearms, and other impact areas safely over long term?
So the biggest thing is practicing the sport is going to be the main thing. Like, you don't need to go kick steel poles and crap like that. And it's like, I don't have like a specific protocol that I'll tell fighters to use or anything like that. But the big thing I always tell people is risk versus reward is the way to think about any of that stuff. So it's like, when you see Tony Ferguson out kicking steel poles, ask yourself, what am I trying to get out of doing this? Okay, I'm trying to make my shins harder. What are the chances that I injure myself? Kicking a steel pole, probably pretty high. And so it's like, in your mind, you're like, oh yeah, but Tony Ferguson did it. It's like, cool. Tony Ferguson's been fighting for 457 years. Like, his bones, like just because you see this guy do it, it doesn't mean that's a good thing for you to go do. Right. It's the same thing. Like I've heard fighters talk about, like, they watched a video. I can't remember who, I wish I could remember who it was. And it was like a pro boxer. And the way he was training to like be able to take body shots was he had a teammate of his drop a medicine ball on him while he was lying down so that it would like hit him in the ribs and in the core to like get used to that. And then I had a fighter tell me they tried that and they broke a rib. And it's like, well, yeah, because this is a professional near the highest level. And you also don't know, like, how high is he dropping the ball from? What type of ball is it? Like, you're not taking all the things into consideration. But if you just look at the exercise itself, okay, I have a teammate throwing a weighted ball at my ribs. What are the chances that I get hurt? Probably pretty high. Don't do it. You know what I mean? Like, it's just like thinking about it with logic. People think about it with like, how do I make myself look the toughest or the craziest? And it's like, no, just be logical. Like, don't kick a steel pole because that's probably going to cause you more pain than it's going to help you. Like, don't have someone throw a medicine ball at your ribs because they're probably going to break.
Yeah. Amazing. I'm glad that you actually explain, because it's a deeper topic. It's not just about chin conditioning. It's about the individual as well, because the body type,
of course,
previous injuries.
And like the more I read about it, the more like body conditioning and shin conditioning, it's a thing. But like work with a teammate, like one of the athletes I work with around here, the way they do it before he fought, he had one of his teammates at the end of sparring just hit him with like 50% power leg kicks on each side of the leg just to like get him used to it again, because it had been a while since he had fought. And it's like, that makes sense because you can control the power. The teammate's not going to try to hurt you, but they're just going to, give you the impact to get used to feeling that again. He's not going to be like, oh yeah, I need to get my shins used to feeling this, so I'm just going to blast a metal pole. Like, no, it's like, hey, teammate, can you help me out? And just like, it's not going to feel good the next day, but you're under control of how much it's going to cause pain. You know what I mean?
100%. Yeah. And that's what it is.
It's a thing. Just be smart.
Be smart and choose your partners smartly as well.
That's the other thing too. Choose the partners intelligently, for sure.
100%. And while we were at it, I actually had another question personally that popped up.
Yeah.
I noticed a lot of the stuff that you explain in your reels and your YouTube content. A lot of the coaching is similar to what the UFC Performance Institute does, which is something that I'm taking a lot of examples from and training from. Do you have any specific coaches or strength and conditioning coaches that you take a lot of inspiration from to use on your business?
Absolutely. So in 2024, I actually got to spend about 11 weeks down at the Performance Institute. And so working directly with Gav Pratt, Alex, I wish I could remember his last name, Alex and Becky, the other two coaches down there, and just hanging out and watching and learning from what they do and how they do it. And so the way that Gav put it, which I thought was brilliant, was there's like gold standard of everything, and the UFC Performance Institute has that, right? It's a $14 million facility or something like that. So it's like anything you want to do at any time, they have the gold standard of it. But now a principle that we've always used is output over exercise, right? So it's like, if the gold standard is this fancy $30,000 piece of equipment, 99% of gyms aren't going to have that. What is the closest way that you can replicate whatever it is you're like that gold standard is with the equipment that you have? Does that make sense? So it's like learning from them was like a huge inspiration and a huge part of like the systems and everything we use today. But the way that I always look at it is like, how do I best replicate the stuff that they would be doing there with whatever equipment the athlete has access to or whatever facilities we have at our disposal? And then the other really big inspiration just from like the coaching and programming standpoint was Phil Daru. And like if you're in this field, I'm sure you know his name, but yeah, basically like he worked with Dustin Poirier for a long time, a lot of the guys down at American Top Team and all over there. And like learning from him, what I always really liked is just the specificity to sport, right? It's not just general kind of working out. It was always new. It was always innovative, and it was always built around the specificity of whatever the athlete needs. And so he was a huge inspiration. I got to actually go down to his gym in Florida this year and like spend a little bit of time with him too. So yeah, those would be the main two. And then I think one other thing, if there's coaches watching, one other person you should absolutely follow is Brett Bartholomew. And like him, it's all about communication now. Like his company's called Art of Coaching, and it's the communication behind the work, because coaches love to get obsessed with, you know, what exercise to do, the sets and reps, the rest time, and the intensity. But it's like, how are you communicating the importance of it to the athlete? How are you getting it across to this individual versus that individual? And like, that's what Brett does. And I just find it so fascinating, because it's like, you can have the best exercises in the world. If you can't explain to the athlete the purpose of it and get them to buy into it, it doesn't matter, because they're not going to get it. And then like the communication is such a bigger part of it than so many coaches like to admit. And I think Brett's changing the game with that stuff.
Amazing, amazing. And I'm currently training under the UFC Performance Institute registration, the modules, and definitely they know what they're talking about.
Oh, yeah.
I personally already told my audience I'm literally about to travel to Southeast Asia, move to Thailand, train with pro fighters, hopefully gain access to the UFC PI in Shanghai, because I saw their facilities online and that's amazing.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's definitely the future of coaching. I feel like it's like, I always like to relate it to the Rocky movie, where Rocky was training in the mountains, and there's also Ivan Drago training in his lab for their fight. Imagine if we combine the old school Rocky training with the Ivan Drago labs together.
Yeah.
You create cyborgs, literally.
Well, yeah, exactly. And it's funny because like, it's funny that you bring up Rocky, because that's something, especially as my social media has grown, you get so many people, oh no, you just need like the old school, da da da. And it's like if people in the 80s trained a certain way, that's no insult to the people in the 80s. That's what they knew. But it's like, there was a day in the past when people thought cigarettes were good for you. Like, it's no disrespect to them, but over time we learn more stuff, right? You learn ways to make it more efficient. You learn ways to make it better. So it's like, okay, Mike Tyson trained this way. No disrespect to Mike Tyson, but when he was fighting regularly, sports science hadn't advanced to the place that it advanced now. You know what I mean? And it's like, if you're stuck in like, this is what my heroes were doing, you're behind the times, because it's always evolving, and like, you've got to evolve with it. If you're not willing to evolve and say like, yeah, I'm going to learn, like take the work ethic that they had back then, sure, but apply the new stuff that we continue to learn, and you're going to be so much further ahead than the guy who's just like, well, you know, this guy said run 10 miles a day, so that's what I'm going to do. It's like, you're missing the boat, man. There's so much more info out there. You got to always be evolving with it.
Amazing, man. And yeah, true. Sport is evolving as well as the fighters are evolving. So if you're a rookie fighter training from the underground, maybe had a few fights in street beefs, I don't know, like stuff like that, you need to up your game, right? So that's 100%. Where people like Coach Alex comes in to make sure that you get the most out of your performance during the fight. So Alex, as we're getting closer to the end of the podcast, now's your time to, you know, any closing thoughts, any final message to the people watching, and where they can find you.
Man, first, I appreciate the different directions that we took this. It's cool being on a show talking about the strength and conditioning stuff, but also going deeper into other stuff too, right? It's a lot of fun getting into those topics. So I think the biggest closing thoughts would be, whether you're an athlete, entrepreneur, anything like that, is like, understand that you're not gonna see the success that you want to right away. But just because you don't see it right now, it doesn't mean it's not coming. Like, there's so many times over the years that it's like, you're going to question if it's working. You're going to question what's happening. Should I quit and do something else? Is it realistic? Like, all of those ups and downs are normal. and like understand that being willing to keep going, and again, being willing to invest in the things that make you a little uncomfortable, being willing to learn from the people and actually implement the feedback that you get. Those are all the steps. Like the more you're willing to get uncomfortable, the further you're going to be able to go. And then one piece of advice that I know has always helped me along the way is like, get the word can't out of your vocabulary. There's always going to be a reason not to do something, right? Oh, I can't, get a strength and conditioning coach because of this. It's like, okay, well, while you said I can't because of this person figured it out. Now they're moving ahead of you, right? For the businesses, it's like, well, I can't hire a mentor because I'm broke. It's like, well, this person's equally as broke as you are. They figured out a way. Now they're moving ahead of you. And it's like, instead of I can't, it's always how can I? And the more you can just shift that in your mind, the further and further you're going to get in anything you do. And as far as where you can find me, Instagram is definitely the primary place, spelled the same way we have it spelled on the screen, Coach_Dusseault. I'll let you put the name in the show notes because usually when people try to spell Dusseault, they butcher it. But yeah, that's the primary place. And then, yeah, we've got YouTube channel as well, same name. And yeah, pretty much if you're on social media, you'll find me somewhere on there.
Well, luckily enough, majority of my audience are Canadian, specifically French Canadians. So,
so hopefully they can spell it. Hopefully they can spell it.
It's all good. Montreal people who are watching, y'all better don't mispronounce that. Learning grammar. So, Coach Kenny, thank you very much for your time. It's been a pleasure interviewing you. I learned so much and actually got inspired even more to progress in my own coaching career because I noticed that just coaching martial arts is not enough. You need to be also a nutritionist sometimes a psychologist, a strength and conditioning coach. And now we have sports science, which is crazy. And why not take inspiration from people who already are, on the top level? So definitely appreciate that. And that, guys, I obviously drop the links for Kenny's socials in the description once I'm going to be posting that to YouTube and whatnot. And fighters who are watching, if you guys need any strength and conditioning coaching, perhaps some mindset as well, I would personally tell, go to Kenny because he's on a way different level than I am. So,
well, man, I appreciate you so much for having me. And yeah, anybody out there listening, I hope you got some great value. And looking forward to talking again soon.
100%. So, guys, subscribe to the channel, show it to other fighters who want to progress in their careers, and we'll catch you at the next chapter. We'll end the stream.